Imagine walking into a fancy office dressed to impress, only to be called an intruder and threatened with the cops, just because of your skin color. But what if your husband is the CEO? Buckle up. This story of epic revenge and justice will blow your mind. Get out of here, you don't belong. Those were the harsh words hurled at Maya Johnson as she stood in the lobby of Apex Tech's gleaming office building. It was a crisp Monday morning, the kind where the autumn air carried a hint of chill, and the sun glinted off the towering glass facade like a promise of new beginnings. Maya, a poised black woman in her mid-30s, had arrived early for what she thought would be a simple visit. She wasn't there for a job interview or a sales pitch. No, this was personal. Dressed in a sharp blazer that hugged her figure just right, paired with a knee-length skirt that swayed with each confident step, she carried a sleek leather folder stuffed with documents. Her natural curls bounced lightly, framing a face that radiated quiet strength and a warm, confident smile. She'd taken extra care that morning, applying a touch of lipstick and ensuring every detail was perfect. Not because she needed to impress anyone, but because that's who she was. Meticulous, professional, and unapologetically herself. But as she approached the reception desk, the atmosphere shifted like a sudden storm cloud blocking the sun. The receptionist, a young woman named Karen, probably in her early 20s with perfectly straightened blonde hair and a name tag that screamed efficiency, eyed her suspiciously from behind the polished counter. Karen's gaze lingered a beat too long, scanning Maya from head to toe as if she were sizing up an unwelcome guest at a private party. Maya could feel the judgment in that stare, the unspoken assumptions that had followed her throughout her life. She took a deep breath, reminding herself to stay calm. "Good morning," Maya said politely, her voice steady and warm. "I'm here to see the CEO. I have some important business to discuss. Could I wait in the lobby until he's available?" Karen didn't even bother to look up from her computer screen at first. She tapped away at her keyboard with manicured nails, the clacking sound echoing in the spacious lobby like tiny judgments. Finally, she glanced up, her lips curling into a smirk that didn't reach her eyes. "Are you lost? This is a professional office, not a place for whatever you're doing," she sneered, her voice dripping with disdain. The words hung in the air, sharp and cutting, laced with that familiar undercurrent of prejudice. Maya felt a pang in her chest, but she wasn't surprised. She'd encountered this before. People who saw her skin color first and her qualifications last. As a successful entrepreneur running her own consulting firm, Maya had pitched ideas to boardrooms full of skeptics, closed deals that others deemed impossible, and built a life of achievement from the ground up. Yet here she was, reduced to whatever you're doing by someone who didn't even know her name. Maya tried again, keeping her tone even. "I assure you I'm not lost. My name is Maya Johnson and I have an appointment of sorts. If you could just let him know I'm here." But Karen waved her off dismissively, as if swatting away a fly. She leaned back in her chair, crossing her arms, and assumed the worst, that Maya was just another unqualified applicant wandering in off the street, or worse, someone who didn't fit the image of who belonged in this high-tech haven. The lobby was buzzing with activity now, employees in crisp shirts and lanyards rushing in with coffee cups, chatting about weekend plans or upcoming projects. A few glanced over, curiosity piqued by the unfolding scene. That's when things escalated. A security guard, a burly man in his 40s with a uniform that strained at the seams and a badge that gleamed under the fluorescent lights, sauntered over from his post near the elevators. He must have caught wind of Karen's tone, or perhaps he was just eager to assert his authority on a slow morning. Chuckling low in his throat, he positioned himself between Maya and the desk, blocking her path like a human barricade. "Ma'am, we don't allow loitering here," he said, his voice gruff and authoritative, though there was a mocking edge to it. "This is private property. Step outside before I have to call the cops." The threat was casual, almost routine, but it landed like a gut punch. Maya could see the amusement in his eyes, the way he shared a knowing glance with Karen, who snickered behind her hand. The lobby echoed with their laughter now, a cruel soundtrack that drew more stares from the employees streaming in. Some paused mid-stride, whispering to each other, "What's going on? Who is she?" While others hurried past, pretending not to notice. Maya's cheeks burned with a mix of embarrassment and rising anger, the heat creeping up her neck like flames. She clutched her phone tightly in one hand, her knuckles whitening, while the other gripped the folder as if it were a lifeline. How dare they? She wasn't some intruder. She was educated, accomplished, and yes, married to the very man they all reported to. But revealing that now felt like giving in to their game. No, she'd wait. She'd hold her ground, just as she'd done in countless boardrooms and life challenges before. In her mind, flashes of her journey played like a montage. Growing up in a modest neighborhood where opportunities were scarce, working 2 jobs through college, building her business from a tiny apartment desk. She'd faced microaggressions, outright racism, and doors slammed in her face, but each time she'd risen stronger. Today was no different. As Karen and the guard continued their taunts, "Really, ma'am, the bus stop is down the street." Maya's resolve hardened. She discreetly thumbed her phone screen, ready to text her husband if needed. Little did they know, this so-called intruder was no stranger to power. She was married to Elijah Johnson, the new CEO of Apex Tech, the man who had just pulled off a massive merger, and was about to walk through those very doors. He was the one about to change everything, turning this humiliating ordeal into a moment of sweet, undeniable justice. The minutes stretched on, tension building like static in the air. Maya stood tall, her confident smile fading but her spirit unbroken. She could hear the distant hum of elevators, the chatter of the office coming alive. Any second now, the truth would explode into the open, and these bullies would learn the hard way that assumptions can cost you dearly. For Maya, this wasn't just about one bad morning. It was a stand against every time she'd been made to feel small. And as the lobby clock ticked forward, she knew the real show was just beginning. Maya's heart raced, pounding like a drum in her chest, but she wasn't one to back down. No, backing down had never been in her nature. Not when life had thrown its worst at her time and again. Growing up in a tough neighborhood on the south side of Chicago, where cracked sidewalks and chain-link fences were the backdrop to her childhood dreams, Maya had learned early on to stand tall amid the storms. The whispers about her skin color started in elementary school, where kids would tease her for being different, and teachers would overlook her raised hand, assuming she couldn't possibly have the right answer. Doubts about her intelligence followed her like shadows, subtle at first, like the guidance counselor who suggested she aim for practical jobs instead of college, or the college professors who graded her papers more harshly, scribbling notes that questioned her sources as if her blackness made her less credible. But Maya had turned those doubts into fuel. She'd clawed her way through scholarships, late-night study sessions, and part-time gigs, emerging with a business degree and a fire in her belly that no one could extinguish. Now, as a successful entrepreneur running her own small consulting firm, specializing in diversity and inclusion strategies for mid-sized companies, Maya knew her worth down to her core. Her firm had helped dozens of businesses revamp their cultures, boosting employee satisfaction and profits along the way. She'd spoken at conferences, mentored young women of color, and built a network that spanned industries. Yet here, in this gleaming lobby of Apex Tech, she was being reduced to nothing more than an outsider. The irony burned. Her work was all about creating spaces where everyone belonged, and now she was fighting for her own right to simply exist in one. "I'm here to see the CEO," she repeated calmly, her voice steady and measured, even as a knot twisted tighter in her stomach. She forced herself to meet Karen's gaze, refusing to let the receptionist's condescension rattle her further. The words came out clear, professional, a testament to years of practicing poise under pressure. But inside, a whirlwind of emotions churned. Anger at the injustice, frustration at the familiarity of it all, and a quiet determination to see this through. Karen rolled her eyes dramatically, the motion exaggerated like a bad actress in a soap opera. She leaned forward over her desk, her fingers flying across the keyboard in a theatrical display of busyness, the clicks echoing sharply in the open space. "The CEO? Honey, he's not seeing randos today," she drawled, her tone laced with mock sweetness that dripped into sarcasm. "And frankly, you look like you skirted in from the wrong side of town." The word skirted landed like a slap across Maya's face, sharp and stinging. It wasn't just an insult. It was loaded, implying she'd sneaked in, slinked through the cracks like someone unworthy of the polished corporate world. Unworthy of the space, the air, the very building. Maya felt the heat rise in her cheeks again, but she bit back a retort. She'd heard variations of this before. "You don't look like you belong here." But each time it chipped away at her, a reminder that no amount of success could fully shield her from bias. The guard, burly and impatient, with arms like tree trunks and a scowl etched permanently on his face, didn't hesitate. He stepped closer, his boots thudding heavily on the marble floor, and grabbed her arm roughly, his grip firm and unyielding. "Time to go, lady," he grunted, his breath hot and stale as he leaned in, trying to steer her toward the exit. The contact sent a jolt through her. Not just physical, but a violation of her personal space, her dignity. Maya yanked her arm free with a sharp tug, her eyes flashing with defiance. "Don't touch me," she said firmly, her voice cutting through the tension like a knife. As she pulled away, she discreetly slipped her hand into her pocket, dialing her husband's number on her phone. The screen lit up under her thumb, a silent lifeline amid the chaos. "This is ridiculous," she muttered under her breath, more to herself than anyone else, the words a quiet affirmation of the absurdity unfolding. Around her, the lobby had turned into a spectacle. Employees paused their hurried coffee runs, steaming mugs forgotten in their hands as they gawked at the scene. Some clustered in small groups near the elevators, whispering behind cupped hands. "Who does she think she is? Probably trying to scam her way in. Security's got it handled." Their stares felt like spotlights, amplifying her humiliation, but Maya refused to shrink. In her mind, flashbacks flooded in unbidden, vivid and painful, being followed by store clerks in upscale boutiques, their eyes tracking her every move as if she were a thief. Being overlooked in high-stakes meetings, her ideas dismissed until a white colleague repeated them verbatim and got the praise. There was that one time in her early career, pitching to investors who smiled politely but later emailed that she didn't fit the brand. Each memory was a scar, but also a lesson in resilience. But today she decided would be different. No more swallowing the hurt, no more polite exits. Today, she'd let the truth speak for itself. As the minutes ticked by, each one stretching like an eternity, the tension built like a storm cloud gathering over the lobby. The air grew thick with anticipation, the hum of fluorescent lights and distant phone rings amplifying the unease. Karen smirked from her desk, the guard hovered menacingly, and the onlookers waited for the climax. Unbeknownst to the staff, oblivious in their bubble of assumptions, the real boss was just pulling into the parking lot outside. Elijah Johnson, Maya's husband and the newly appointed CEO, maneuvered his sleek black SUV into a reserved spot, his mind already racing through the day's agenda. But as he grabbed his briefcase and headed toward the entrance, he had no idea of the thunder he was about to unleash, the kind that would shake the foundations of prejudice and demand accountability. Maya glanced at her phone, seeing his incoming call flash on the screen. The storm was here, and it was time for the lightning to strike. Suddenly, the lobby door swung open with a whoosh of authority, the heavy glass panels parting like the Red Sea under an invisible command. A gust of cool morning air rushed in, carrying the faint scent of rain-kissed asphalt from the parking lot outside. In strode Elijah Johnson, a towering figure at 6'4", his broad shoulders cutting an imposing silhouette against the bright daylight. He was a commanding black man in his late 30s, dressed in an impeccably tailored navy suit that hugged his athletic frame, the fabric whispering softly with each purposeful step. A crisp white shirt peeked out from beneath, accented by a silk tie in deep crimson, and his polished leather shoes clicked sharply against the marble floor. His face, chiseled and handsome with a neatly trimmed beard and piercing brown eyes, exuded the kind of quiet power that made rooms fall silent. Elijah wasn't just any executive, he was a self-made force of nature, having risen from humble beginnings in the same tough Chicago neighborhood as his wife, through sheer grit and brilliance, to lead one of the tech industry's rising stars. Whispers that had been buzzing among the gawking employees turned to sharp gasps, rippling through the lobby like a wave. Heads snapped toward the entrance, eyes widening in recognition. "That's him," someone murmured from the back, near the coffee station. "The new CEO from the merger emails." Indeed, Elijah had been appointed just weeks ago after orchestrating a major merger that catapulted Apex Tech into the big leagues, merging with the rival firm and boosting their market value overnight. Company-wide memos had circulated his photo, praising his visionary leadership and innovative strategies. But seeing him in person was different. His presence filled the room like a force of nature, commanding respect without a word. Employees who had been frozen in their voyeuristic stares now straightened up, some fumbling with their lanyards or setting down their mugs, suddenly aware that the power dynamic had shifted dramatically. Elijah's eyes, sharp and assessing, scanned the chaotic scene before him. The lobby with its sleek modern decor, minimalist furniture, abstract art on the walls, and the soft hum of overhead lights seemed to shrink under his gaze. His attention zeroed in on the corner where Maya stood, still hemmed in by the burly security guard and the now pale receptionist. She looked composed but strained, her natural curls slightly disheveled from the earlier tug-of-war, her sharp blazer askew. Elijah's face hardened instantly, the lines around his mouth tightening into a mask of controlled fury. A protective fire ignited in his eyes, the kind that only a husband who had shared years of battles with his wife could muster. He knew Maya's strength, had witnessed her navigate prejudice with grace, but seeing her cornered like this? It was unacceptable. A personal affront that stirred something primal in him. Memories flashed in his mind. Their first date, where they bonded over shared stories of overcoming bias. Their wedding vows, promising to face the world together. And the countless times they'd supported each other's careers. This wasn't just about an incident. It was an attack on their shared life. "What's going on here?" Elijah boomed, his deep voice reverberating off the marble floors and high ceilings, cutting through the tension like a thunderclap. The sound echoed, silencing the last remnants of chatter and making a few employees jump. It wasn't a question. It was a demand laced with authority that brooked no nonsense. Karen, the receptionist, whose smug expression had been her armor moments ago, felt it melt away like ice under a blowtorch. Her face drained of color, turning ashen as she stammered to her feet, knocking over a stack of papers in her haste. "Mr. Johnson, we were just handling an intruder," she blurted out, her voice high-pitched and shaky, the words tumbling over each other. She gestured vaguely toward Maya, but her confidence had evaporated, replaced by wide-eyed panic. The guard, equally caught off guard, released Maya's arm as if it were suddenly scalding hot. He stepped back, mumbling incoherent apologies. "Sorry, sir, I didn't know. Just doing my job," his burly frame shrinking under Elijah's glare. Elijah ignored them both, his focus solely on his wife. He crossed the lobby in long, deliberate strides, the crowd parting instinctively as he approached. Without a word to the offenders, he enveloped Maya in a warm, protective hug, his strong arms wrapping around her like a shield. The embrace was tender, a stark contrast to the storm brewing in his eyes, and he held her close for a moment, inhaling the familiar scent of her perfume. "Are you okay, love?" he asked softly, his voice dropping to a gentle whisper meant only for her, as he planted a soft kiss on her forehead. Maya nodded, a small smile breaking through her tension, her hand resting on his chest. "I'm fine now," she murmured, the weight of the ordeal lifting in his presence. The lobby fell into a profound silence, the kind where you could hear a pin drop. Jaws dropped around the room, employees exchanging stunned glances as the pieces connected like a puzzle snapping into place. This intruder, the woman they'd whispered about and judged, was the CEO's wife? The realization hit like a bombshell, sending ripples of shock through the crowd. Some shifted uncomfortably, regretting their earlier gossip. Others stared in wide-eyed disbelief. Elijah pulled back slightly from the hug, but kept a supportive arm around Maya's shoulders. He turned to face the staff, his tone shifting to ice-cold steel, each word deliberate and cutting. "This woman is my partner in every sense, my wife, my confidant, my equal in business and in life. Treat her with disrespect, and you're disrespecting me. And let me be clear, that will not stand in this company." The air thickened with shock, heavy and electric, as if the room itself held its breath. Whispers of apology began to murmur from the edges, but Elijah's expression made it clear this was just the beginning. A reckoning was coming, one that would expose biases, demand accountability, and reshape the culture of Apex Tech. No one had seen it coming, but now, with Elijah at the helm and Maya by his side, the stage was set for change that would echo far beyond these walls. Elijah didn't waste a single moment. The fury in his eyes, still simmering from the scene he'd walked into, propelled him into action. With a sharp wave of his hand, he signaled for the scattered employees, those lingering by the elevators, clutching their briefcases or pretending to check their phones, to converge in the center of the lobby. "Everyone gather around. Now," he commanded, his voice a low rumble that carried the weight of authority, echoing off the high ceilings and glass walls. The impromptu staff meeting was happening right there, amid the sleek leather chairs and potted ferns, transforming the once bustling entrance into an arena of accountability. People shuffled forward hesitantly, forming a loose semicircle around him and Maya. The air hummed with unease. Coffee cups were set down on nearby tables, and the usual Monday morning chatter dissolved into a tense hush. Even those who had been mere spectators felt the pull, drawn into the gravity of the moment. Elijah stood tall, his tailored suit impeccable, positioning himself like a general addressing his troops, with Maya at his side. A united front against the invisible barriers of prejudice. "Listen up," he announced, his deep voice commanding every ounce of attention, slicing through the silence like a blade. Heads turned, eyes locked on him, some wide with curiosity, others narrowed in discomfort. "Today I witnessed something unacceptable, something that goes against everything this company stands for." He paused, letting the words sink in, his gaze sweeping the crowd like a spotlight, making sure no one could hide. "My wife Maya came here as my guest, with every right to be in this building. And what did you do? You treated her like trash. Like she was some intruder who didn't belong. Why? Because of how she looks. Because she's black." The questions hung in the air, heavy and accusatory, challenging the very core of their assumptions. Murmurs rippled through the crowd like an uneasy wave, soft gasps, shuffled feet, and awkward coughs. Some employees shifted uncomfortably on their feet, fiddling with their lanyards or staring at the floor to avoid eye contact. A few nodded in reluctant agreement, their faces flushing with shame, while others exchanged guilty glances, whispering, "I didn't say anything," or "It wasn't me." The guard, still hovering at the edge of the group, looked like he wanted to melt into the shadows, his burly frame slumping as if the weight of his actions had finally hit him. Maya stood beside Elijah, her posture now a pillar of composure, the earlier humiliation morphing into a quiet, unyielding strength that radiated from her like an aura. Her natural curls framed her face with renewed poise, and her sharp blazer, once askew from the guard's rough handling, was straightened with deliberate care. She met the eyes of those around her, not with anger, but with a steady gaze that spoke volumes, of resilience forged in fire, of battles won through grace. In that moment, she wasn't just the victim. She was the embodiment of empowerment, her presence amplifying Elijah's words. Elijah pressed on, his tone unwavering as he revealed more, peeling back the layers of misunderstanding. "Maya isn't just my wife, she's a brilliant businesswoman in her own right. She's the one who helped me build the strategies that landed me this CEO position. Her insights on market trends and team dynamics were crucial during the merger talks." He gestured toward her with pride, his voice warming slightly as he continued. "She's consulted for Fortune 500 companies, turning around their diversity initiatives and boosting their bottom lines. Yet you all assume she didn't belong here based on what? A quick glance? A stereotype?" Karen's face turned beet red, a deep crimson flush creeping from her neck to her cheeks, her earlier smugness replaced by mortified silence. She clutched the edge of her desk, knuckles white, as if it were the only thing keeping her upright. The guard, meanwhile, averted his eyes entirely, staring at his boots as if they held the secrets to invisibility. His earlier bravado evaporated. To drive the point home, Elijah pulled his phone from his suit pocket, the screen lighting up with a soft glow. He swiped through a gallery of photos, holding it up for the crowd to see, intimate snapshots of their life together. A sun-drenched vacation in the Caribbean, where they laughed on a beach with waves crashing behind them. An award ceremony where Maya stood on stage, accepting a plaque for her consulting work, with Elijah beaming from the audience. Family gatherings, professional galas, and quiet moments at home that showcased their unbreakable bond. "Look at this," he said, his voice steady but edged with emotion. "This is us. Partners in every way. We've built a life overcoming the same biases you're displaying right now." The images humanized the moment, turning abstract accusations into tangible reality. "This company prides itself on diversity. It's in our mission statement, our recruitment ads, our annual reports," Elijah continued, his words gaining momentum. "But actions speak louder than words. What happened today exposes the deep-seated biases lurking in this office, the kind that undermine everything we're trying to achieve. The revelation hit like a bombshell, shattering the facade of inclusivity. Gasps echoed, and the murmurs shifted from discomfort to dawning realization. Whispers turned to tentative apologies. "I'm so sorry, Mrs. Johnson." One employee ventured from the back, followed by a chorus of similar sentiments. Faces softened, some with tears welling up, as the weight of collective complicity settled in. But Elijah wasn't done yet. His expression remained resolute, a promise that this wasn't just talk. Justice was about to be served, not through vengeance, but through meaningful change, policies revisited, trainings mandated, and a culture rebuilt from the ground up. The lobby, once a place of routine, had become a catalyst for transformation, with Elijah and Maya at its heart. With the truth laid bare in the charged atmosphere of the lobby, Elijah wasted no time in channeling his authority into decisive, unflinching action. The crowd, still huddled in their semicircle, held a collective breath as he turned his gaze first to Karen, who stood frozen behind her desk, her earlier arrogance replaced by a look of sheer dread. Elijah's voice, steady and resolute, cut through the silence like a judge's gavel. "Karen, your behavior today was not only unprofessional but blatantly discriminatory. You judged someone based on appearance and made assumptions that have no place in this workplace. Effective immediately, you're suspended pending a full review by HR." The words landed with the force of a thunderbolt. Karen's beet-red face paled to a ghostly white. She opened her mouth as if to protest, but no sound emerged. Instead, she gathered her belongings with trembling hands, a purse, a water bottle, a stray notepad, mumbling something incoherent under her breath as she slunk toward the exit, the eyes of her colleagues following her every step. It was a humbling sight, a stark reminder that actions had consequences, and the lobby seemed to exhale in unison as the doors closed behind her. Elijah wasn't finished. He shifted his attention to the security guard, who had been inching backward as if hoping to blend into the potted plants lining the walls. "And you," Elijah said, pointing directly at the burly man, whose uniform now seemed ill-fitting in his moment of vulnerability. "Grabbing a visitor without cause? That's unacceptable. You'll receive a stern warning in your file, and you're mandated to attend sensitivity training starting next week. We don't manhandle people here. We respect them." The guard nodded vigorously, his head bobbing like a puppet on strings, muttering a string of apologies. "Yes, sir, won't happen again, sir," as sweat beaded on his forehead. The reprimands were swift but fair, designed not just to punish but to educate, setting a tone that rippled through the assembled staff. Whispers of agreement began to murmur. "About time," one employee said softly to another, signaling a shift from shock to reluctant approval. Turning back to the wider crowd, Elijah raised his voice slightly, ensuring every ear caught his next words. "This isn't just about one incident," he declared, his tone shifting from stern to inspirational. "We're implementing company-wide changes starting today. Mandatory diversity workshops for all employees, to unpack biases and build real understanding. An anonymous reporting system for any instances of bias or discrimination, so no one feels afraid to speak up. And a new policy that ensures every visitor, every single one, is treated with the respect they deserve, regardless of who they are or what they look like." He paused, letting the announcements sink in, his eyes scanning the faces before him, some nodding thoughtfully, others jotting notes on their phones. "We succeed together or we fail apart," he emphasized, the phrase hanging in the air like a mantra, a call to unity that resonated deeply. Applause broke out sporadically, tentative at first, then building as the group absorbed the gravity of the moment. It was more than policy. It was a promise of transformation. Maya, who had stood quietly beside him throughout, now became the unexpected center of admiration. The employees' gazes softened toward her, shifting from curiosity to genuine respect. Her earlier humiliation had evaporated, replaced by a quiet strength that made her seem even more formidable. Encouraged by Elijah's supportive nod, she stepped forward slightly, her voice clear and composed, carrying the weight of her experiences. "I've faced this my whole life," she began, her words measured but powerful, drawing everyone in. "From being followed in stores as a kid, to having my ideas dismissed in boardrooms because of my skin color. It's exhausting, but Today shows that change is possible. We all have biases, but we can choose to challenge them. Don't judge by appearances. Everyone has a story, a background, talents you might never guess. Let's make this office a place where those stories are heard and valued. Her message was simple yet profound, delivered with the poise of someone who had turned pain into purpose. Employees nodded emphatically, some wiping away tears, moved by her vulnerability and grace. A few approached her personally as the meeting wrapped up, offering heartfelt apologies. "I'm so sorry I didn't step in," one young woman said, her voice trembling. "That was wrong of us," added an older man, extending a hand in reconciliation. Maya accepted them with warmth, her smile genuine, turning potential adversaries into allies. As the day drew to a close, the sun dipping low and casting golden hues through the lobby windows, Elijah and Maya left hand in hand, their fingers intertwined in a gesture of solidarity. The office buzzed with newfound awareness. Conversations in break rooms turned to reflections on bias, and emails flew about the upcoming workshops. The incident, once a source of tension, became a turning point for Apex Tech, boosting morale as employees felt seen and empowered. Inclusivity metrics improved in the months that followed, with retention rates climbing and innovative ideas flowing from diverse teams. Word of the story leaked online, exploding on social media platforms like Twitter and LinkedIn. Hashtags like #RespectAtWork and #MayaJohnsonStory trended, with videos of similar experiences shared by thousands, inspiring a wave of discussions on workplace discrimination. Views skyrocketed into the millions, turning the couple's ordeal into a beacon of hope for marginalized voices everywhere. In the end, what had started as a humiliating skirting of respect, a sly implication of unworthiness, transformed into a powerful lesson etched into the company's DNA. Never underestimate anyone, because the person you dismiss might just be connected to the top, or hold wisdom that could change everything. For Maya and Elijah, the experience only strengthened their bond, a testament to their shared resilience. As they drove home that evening laughing about the absurdity while planning their next adventure, it was clear. Love and justice, when intertwined, always emerge victorious, lighting the way for others to follow. And that's how one humiliating moment turned into a game-changer for an entire company, proving that standing up against bias can spark real change. If this story inspired you or made you think twice about judging others, hit that like button to show your support. Don't forget to subscribe for more empowering tales of triumph, revenge, and life lessons that hit home. Drop a comment below. Have you ever faced something like this? Let's discuss and build a community of positivity. Thanks for watching. See you in the next one.